Sono qui con ormai un amico, mi permetto di
Sì.
dire, uno dei più grandi batteristi della storia, uno dei più grandi didatti della storia, l'incredibile e ormai diventato sardo dopo ieri, che tutti gli vogliono bene, Thomas Lang. Thomas, grazie per
Grazie a te. Ciao.
So it's your first time in Sardinia? No, sorry, it's not the first time, but in the recent 2 years, it's what actually was the longest tour in Sardinia. Since you did Sassari, you did a master class, you did the clinic.
Yes.
And how has it been for you? How was the reception? How you feel about it?
I'm with you, so I'm very happy. Yeah, you're taking great care of me, so I always enjoyed being here. You've been here many times over the years. We've known each other since 2004 or something.
Many
I
years
think.
ago.
Many years ago. And I always love coming back, hanging with you and visiting your school here, Batteria. It's great fun. Enjoying the beaches, the warm weather. And yeah, I'm having a great time.
So thank you very much. I would like to start with this interview. You know, we live in an era where it's very difficult to understand what's the reality and what is the I would say the social media part of drumming. And so I would start just right away with a question about the young drummers of today. I think it's very difficult to understand what to practice and where to go and how to divide good information from kind of, I would say, second class in musical information. What is your advice to somebody who is starting to learn drums and he wants to learn, you know, the right way? How should he actually, what should he practice? What should he look for? And how can he find good informations?
That's a very good question. I am of the opinion that if you want to learn any instrument, drums in our case, it's best to get your information from the right sources and from competent sources and in person. I'm a big fan of in-person tuition and instruction where the teacher can immediately correct mistakes you make. He can literally touch you and nothing beats the human touch. You know, he can say, drop your shoulder or lift your elbow or do this, no, turn your wrist. And it's instant and immediate and you get instant feedback from a good teacher and immediate corrections. And you don't ever have that online. You don't have it on social media or on any website. And in order to learn fast and correctly, I recommend an in-person teacher. And maybe to supplement your in-person education, you can look at whatever is online, you know, and in my opinion, most of it is not very good. Most of it is second class or third class, bottom tier education. And none of it has the element of correction, you know, immediate correction. So I think you should go and find a great local teacher and try to research the best teachers in your area. It's worth traveling somewhere for regular lessons and really making the effort to get to somebody in person rather than choose the easy way out and try to find and cobble together bits of questionable information online, you know. So that's the way I learned. That's the way I like to teach. And as a supplement to that, you can have, you know, whatever lives online. And you can see that creativity has become more and more irrelevant and personality. A lot of the people that you see online sound the same because they all get the information, inspiration from the same places, and I think it's made everybody sound very much alike. And you very rarely hear somebody who really has personality in their playing and does something different. And I think it's also a big factor because everybody looks at the stuff online, the same places, and not at in-person instruction. I think if you learn in person, you tend to be more inventive yourself, and I think you develop a personality quicker on the instrument, and then yes, supplement it with hopefully good online education, and not some schmo who started an online drum school during COVID. You know what I mean?
Okay, I can
Which
understand.
a lot of these online schools are really garbage, in my opinion, happened during COVID when everybody was desperate to work and make money online or something. Suddenly you have these hundreds and hundreds of websites where some Joe Schmo is teaching something he barely knows himself. So,
That's what I felt is happening. We agree on many things. So many questions will be about education.
yeah.
Also, I wanna, since we are discussing about this, I wanna just talk quickly about you. Finally, you are so you have I was a subscriber of your drum school. I had a private teacher and I was supplementing it, so I'm happy I was doing it right. I think your drum school, the Thomas Lang Drum School, was super educational. It was good. I was really stunned by the quality of the material. And like now I know you have a new website where you are going to do new things.
Yes.
Can you talk to us about?
Of course, yeah. The new platform is called upstageyourself.com, and I am curating very specific courses that target pain points for drummers. Very specific techniques and questions are being answered, and I curated these true sort of play-along courses where the student has to work with me for a certain period of time. It requires dedication, it requires discipline and daily practice. And it's not a course where I say, well, here is the thing, go home and practice. It is actually a play-along course. Like at the moment, I'm offering a 21-day double stroke course. So it's 2 weeks of 30 minutes a day of doubles, and then the third week is 45 minutes a day of play-along courses.
Okay, is it for beginners or intermediate?
It's for not complete drum beginners. It's for people who struggle with double strokes. It's people who can already play drums a little bit. It's also for beginners. It's very intense for beginners. It's more targeted towards people who have the double stroke not fully developed, not secure. It doesn't work on the whole drum set. It's a pain point. It's still a handicap. And since double strokes are everywhere in drumming, 50% of our repertoire is doubles. What's a paradiddle without the diddle? You know what I mean?
It's a para.
Para. Exactly. So it targets those weak points. And you can tell a great drummer by things like that, little details like perfectly executed double strokes. And so I strive to eliminate those pain points for students.
Can you tell us also what's the next courses going to be, or is it secret?
No, it's not. There's a bunch of courses in the pipeline. There's a foot course in the pipeline.
Will it be coming soon, or
Yes, it's coming soon. We're churning out courses every 2 months.
Okay.
So there's a foot doubles course, there's a foot rudimental course, there's a course on groove independent.
And all with the practice along stuff?
Yes.
Okay, I'm subscribing for sure.
Okay.
Okay, next question is like drum camps. Many people say you started the new era of drum camps many years ago. I remember that this is a common thing. So can you confirm it? Like you were?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now drum camps became more and more frequent, but it looks like now instead of having one host who is able to teach for a full day, you have many people during the day teaching different things. That I believe it can be interesting, but it's a different thing compared to, for example, if I go to your drum camp and I spend 8 hours with you, it's one thing. And if I spend one day with 8 different drummers, it's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
So my question is, what do you think the future is going to be? Because it looks like it's getting always more entertainment, but less instructional.
Well, yes, that's the problem, I think, with a lot of the online platforms right now, that education has sort of taken the back seat to entertainment. And it's a bit like the news programs in the world today. A lot of news channels have become opinion, not news.
Okay.
And a lot of educational platforms have become entertainment and not education. And I think for a lot of young musicians, that's very confusing. And there's really no valuable information in any of it. It's entertainment, which is fine. I like to be entertained. Wonderful.
But you know the difference.
I think it should be labeled as that and not as education. And there's platforms that call themselves online educational platforms, but they only provide entertainment, really. And whatever they have backstage, that's courses, is not of great value either, or great quality. and that's part of the motivation for me to release these courses recently, because I think it's important to put the correct information out there, And in regards to the camps, yes, my camp was definitely the first artist-hosted traveling, touring, educational event. And it was my idea to start using Go Anywhere kits, so every student can actually play along with hands and feet and has the whole setup and everything. And that has been copied many times now, because for a lack of innovation, there's a lot of imitation in the world of creativity, unfortunately. But it's fine. I mean, it is now a slightly oversaturated, I think, the market of drum camps. Because again, there's a lot of camps out there that don't really provide education.
It's entertainment.
It's more entertainment, and for some people, I think it's more like a money-making scheme rather than anything else, And I've seen and experienced a lot of those camps around the world that are really garbage, And you have somebody teach who's really not competent, and a lot of the guys who host these camps, they do fancy themselves, great educators, but really don't have any education at all themselves, And it's painful to see for me sometimes, that the quality isn't really great, and it takes away from the people who are out there who really are great educators too, and not only great educators but also great performers. And there's a bunch of camps out there where the educators are neither educators nor performers,
I wanted to ask you another thing related to the new education thing. It looks like people are putting new names to old stuff. There's something scanning like techniques. They were like in the 50s and
like
before.
Gladstone technique, or gospel chops.
Yeah, they're calling it. How can a new, as we said, a beginner, they learn so many weird names. Even, for example, the Stone Killers. Many people doesn't know it's Joe Morello who took it from George Lawrence Stone.
Yeah.
Everything is getting lost. How is it possible, in your opinion, that we're losing the essential parts of it, and it became something else that sometimes has nothing to do, like flying fingers? They changed the name, but finger technique has been there since.
I know. It's one of those things, because there's really, especially in our sort of area of expertise, drumming, there is a centralized sort of organization, the Percussive Arts Society in the States, who verify rudimental things, names and stuff like that for specific drumming techniques. That's really the Percussive Arts Society. So we have a centralized organization that should and does control things like names, current rudiments, hybrid rudiments that are being added to our repertoire, etc. But the problem with drumming language, for example, is that it's very different in every country in the world. And sometimes there are no translations to certain things. And I think a lot of people misunderstand traditional drumming names because they are phonetic names and they describe the sticking in the name. And because those names aren't always translated correctly or translated at all, a lot of places and individual territories make up their own names for things, and they then become popular in a certain part of the world, if you know what I mean. And I think this is something that is just in the nature of the beast of having sort of a global community that all does the same thing, but we all learn in different languages, and there's some, bad translations, etc. So there should really be more of a sort of uniform language for everything online. And yes, you're also right that a lot of younger educators, maybe, or institutions around the world, they believe they discovered something new, which has already existed for many, many years, and then they give it their own name and call it something, whatever it is, not knowing that this already exists under a different name, and like gospel chops, that linear playing style has been around since, the 70s. I mean, I heard Vinny play that stuff in the 70s, and Dennis Chambers and people like that. It's nothing new. It just it was given a new name because it became popular in a certain genre of music, or things like the Gladstone technique. Billy Gladstone is basically the push-pull technique. It used to be called the Gladstone technique, and then it became push-pull. And at one point it was called the one-handed roll. And then that name became that rim action thing. That suddenly was the one-handed roll. And so things change, I think, as a result of misunderstandings, misconceptions, misnaming, and also lack of research and education. That's for sure. You know, a lot of people just don't know because they never learned it or never looked at the book and never realized, oh, Stone Killer is the, you know, because of Lawrence Stone, who wrote the book Stick Control and stuff like that, you know. So
it looks like even if we have more information, we're getting lost easier.
Yeah.
It looks like the more we have, the less we understand.
Right.
Because when I was a kid, at least you had the book. So you had the Stone Killer from that book. Even if it was a photocopy, you knew where it come from. Now it looks like everything is changing.
Yeah.
So it goes right to the next question. If you have to say to a young guy where to look for, you say the PIS website, they can find valuable information. Would you say, like, name few sites where they can be sure they find the good?
Well, you know, really the centralized organization for anything related to drumming techniques, rudimental techniques, and so on is Percussive Art Society, which is a fantastic organization in the States, and a lot of those techniques are rooted in marching drumming and American like drumming. And of course, there's also, you know, the older history of Basler drumming from Switzerland, where a lot of those American rudiments, you know, are the result of Swiss rudiments, like the Swiss triplet and so on, you know. They come from Basel in Switzerland and that style of drumming, and of course Scottish pipe band drumming, you know, which uses slightly different drums, like field drums, not high tension drum heads and so on. So, and there are, if you just Google Scottish pipe band drumming, you'll find dozens and dozens of results of, first of all, great information on techniques, videos, websites. Through the Percussive Arts Society, you find a lot of information and links to many, many other websites and to individual marching bands and educators who are actually teaching the most current hybrid rudiments and all that kind of stuff. And the same with Basler drumming. There's plenty of websites. I can't recall the names now of all the URLs, but there's plenty of information out there if you look for that information. You know, you have to actually put in
the right title.
Yes, you have to put in Basler drumming or Scottish pipe band drumming and so on to actually find the right results. If you just go on YouTube and Google snare technique or something, you're not going to find it. You have to know what to look for. And Klaus Hessler is a fantastic German drummer who has an incredible YouTube channel and website where he teaches Basler drumming, for example. Really fantastic stuff. And he also has lots of links where he recommends websites and so on his site. So I would look for that information out there. And you get the correct names and the history of everything, which is really important to know. And a lot of people, younger drummers, don't really care much about the history. And, you know, we are all standing on the shoulders of giants who came before us. And we have elevated ourselves to this point because of the knowledge provided to us from the people who were here before us. I mean, I learned so much from everybody who was here before me, and I did, you know, try to seriously absorb that information and then build upon that. And I think that's the only correct way to move forward, not just to think, oh, you know, you are the first to discover everything. You know, and I see a lot of people who are like, oh, wow, look what I discovered, this thing. And I was like, well, that's been there since the 20s, you know, like 105 years ago. So, yeah.
So next question is about sponsors and how today everything changed. It looks like many sponsors these days, they don't care about live events. They just care about social media. So they are supporting, like many young guys that I can understand, and I appreciate that. But they are taking out support from real drum events with real masters. As we said, for example, for your tour, and I will be completely honest with you, we had to do everything by ourselves. So I had to take a friend and ask him, hey, can you provide me your DW drum set? I have to put all my stuff and everything. because it looks like more and more they just care about social media. So it's just my perception, or is it real? What's your opinion about it?
Well, my experience is exactly the same. I've noticed that a lot of manufacturers and their marketing departments are banking exclusively on apps, social media marketing, and online marketing, which I think is a huge mistake. And I think a lot of them will learn also in the near future that that is a big mistake, because there is no true and proven conversion from views to dollars in all possible ways. So if somebody online has a lot of views, it doesn't mean they make a lot of money. Especially if the backing tracks, etc., they use are not monetizable, and they can't run ads, like LS Taparia, for example. He released a video about it not long ago. So there's that disconnect. So views and likes and followers do not equal dollars at all. Not in drumming, not in any other area of expertise. And then the other problem is that sponsorship by manufacturers of some people who have a lot of followers, they don't translate to more sales. I noticed not only from the drumming world, but also from other businesses, the fitness world, and yoga, and like health drinks and protein drinks and that kind of world, because I know people who do that kind of marketing for big companies. The conversion from somebody with 5 million followers to product sold does not exist. The conversion exists on much smaller influencers, if you want to call them that, because the audience can relate to them better, and there's a better conversion rate of posts to sales, but it's still neglectable and much smaller than the conversion rate you get at a live event. If you have a drum clinic in a drum store and people can hear the cymbals or the drums live, they can touch them, they can, play them, they can take them off a rack and try them, that is when you have sales, historically and still today. And I think it's money not well spent by these manufacturers. And I think it's going to bite them in the ass, in the future. And I see that some of them are trying to come around and find a compromise between the two platforms, invest in social media marketing and invest more in events again. But it's a very slow progress right now. And, economically, it's a weird time right now, and tariffs and all these kind of other sort of factors that make people wait longer to buy new product and stuff. There's a lot of shit going on right now. But I see that too. I disagree with it. I think manufacturers should put more money into supporting schools, live events, whatever it is, clinics, festivals, in-person appearances and performances, rather than bank on some unknown or really well-known influencer online. A lot of them who really aren't great players and definitely not great educators. And it is a very superficial way of promoting your product, I think, to just give hand over some symbols to some dude or chick, that makes very sort of not even all that entertaining stuff online, that is edited and sound replaced anyway, and then tweaked and filtered and what have you. Me personally, as somebody who likes to live in the real world, not the virtual world, it's a joke, to me personally, to see so much of it. And it's such an overkill of nonsense, especially on social media. Every time I see a drum video on social media, I have to keep scrolling, because it's like, I know this is like, I hear 5 seconds, like, that's not real, and next, and that's not real, next, and this is nonsense, next. There's nothing out there that's really super hip. I mean, I have to scroll like for hours to find one video where I'm thinking, that's kind of cool, that's kind of hip, and that's real.
Well, I mean, I get bored. I can imagine you with your knowledge by those. Everything sounds the same. Everything is fake. But the problem is, young kids, sometimes they don't understand the difference between and this is even because I have students coming at me, hey, watch this video. The guy has super unbelievable sounds, but no, not any mic on the kit, not even the 8010. So it's like, dude, this is fake. And they don't know.
Yeah.
So some people, we are teaching, we are supporting people who are teaching like entertainment, but not educational stuff, and who want to learn doesn't know how. That's why the importance of a live event.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially today, there's this whole tendency to just simply accept whatever happens on your screen as real and true, whether it's something that's AI generated and completely made up, or deep fakes, or, you know, filtered and quantized drum videos. You know, it's all in that same virtual world. And I'm not a big fan of that. You know, I like the real world and real performances and real skill and real knowledge and real energy and real aggression, and nothing that's kind of faked out there. I'm not a big fan of that. And I think there's too much of it. It's sad, and it's also pathetic, I think, to see so much of it. And yes, for the younger generation, I also didn't know anything when I was a kid. I didn't know, you know, how some guy played something. I didn't understand miking techniques or whatever.
You would have the Dave Weckl video, and you could see like Dave Weckl performing.
Exactly. But
So
I did make an effort to go and have the real experience. You know, I did actually travel to shows, you know, and I drove all through the night to go and see whatever Dave Weckl play or something like that. You know, I made the effort to go and see it for real, in real life, touch it, hear it, and understand the mechanics of it and the reality of it. And I think there's a lot of people out there today who don't do that, and I think it taints and sort of distorts their perception of reality, you know, and they believe a lot of nonsense, and they're very easily manipulated into thinking a certain way, or believing things are true that aren't true, or real that aren't real. And I think it's a bad development, for sure.
it's a bad moment.
Yes, it is.
Okay. My next question comes with technique related. You are a technique giant. So basically, you know a lot of technique. You develop many techniques. My question is, do we know what are the techniques, in your opinion, a good drummer should know and use? If you have to choose, like, they can play only with wrist, they have to learn fingers, or what are the most important techniques, in your opinion, to have a good playing?
I think there's a lot of important techniques, you know, of course, wrist strokes, locked grip technique, you know, controlled strokes, finger control to a certain degree. But the most important thing is to know when to use which technique. I think a lot of drummers struggle with that. There's very simple rules. You just can't use French timpani grip, and you know, which relies on rebound and is a finger control technique, on floor toms or other tom-toms, or you can't use it for multiple surfaces and fast moves of the kit. You need wrist strokes for that, you know, and for dynamics, you need a lot of controlled strokes, you know, and stone killer exercises and stuff like that. Wrist strokes with accents. Most drummers don't know how to use these techniques and when to use them, and it's the same with the feet. You know, when do you use ankle strokes, or when do you use heel up strokes, or flat-footed, like stomping and stuff like that?
Stomping name is a name that I think you kind of made it famous, right? Because you, in the last couple of years, the stomping name, you were the guy who made it more.
I have heard, you know, I adapted the term from people I've heard and seen play like 30 years ago. So I've known this term stomping as the flat-footed, you know, heel and ball of the foot technique all my life, almost.
Wow. Okay.
So, and I've always called it that. And I think some of the early metal drummers even called it that. But not all of them made the distinction between heel up on the ball of your foot and heel up stomping. And that's something I like to emphasize when I teach, for sure. And ankle strokes, you know, or swivel, which is a much newer technique, or rocking foot or pivoting foot. There's a lot of different names for the same techniques, really.
Would you do that like on your website? It will be explained?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Exactly. On the foot courses, all this information will be there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a sort of a misunderstanding as a result of confusing terminology, that's out there, where there's no centralized point of or source for information for people. Yeah.
So you have this responsibility now.
I have the responsibility. I'm gonna do this, okay? Upstageyourself.com.
Another question that comes from, a lot of music, many styles of music, and we had a cool talk about metal, and unfortunately, what metal has become today. And I was impressed actually by your knowledge. Yes, I listened to a lot of metal, only that when I was a teenager. You know many bands, many eras, many great drummers, and we agree. But then I will ask you, metal lost something along the way.
Yes, it did.
It lost many things, but in your opinion, what's the biggest difference between the metal playing now and metal playing, for example, in the 90s?
Well, metal in the 90s was aggressive music that was played aggressively, which means loud with power and fast, loud and fast,
Okay.
which is the most difficult combination. If you look at Dave Lombardo or Pete Sandoval or whatever, Nick Menza, and like all the original like 90s hardcore drummers and thrash drummers and stuff, they played hard and loud. And that was what I enjoyed. And the bands had songs. I don't find it aggressive anymore. I don't find speed to be relevant.
Because it's not aggressive.
Yes, it's still opposite, and
It's relaxed. It's
super
nice.
minimal, and a lot of it is fake, which means it's triggered to be aggressive, and it's not really truly aggressive,
Triggered to be this.
It's a pretense aggression. It's a false aggression.
Somebody like shouting, but you give him a slap, and he's
Somebody's like whispering in a microphone, and what you hear outside is "Rah!" It's that. It's like totally not correct. I've seen, and I'm sure you have too, I've been backstage and like behind drum rises when the drummer doesn't even have beaters in the pedals, and they're only playing the piezo trigger. And you hear this most incredible bass drum sound, and there's no beaters in the pedals or no drum heads on the drum, and there's like KD7s inside of the kick drums, no drum head on the drum. That's not metal to me. It's sad. And
so you said the songs that you remember, the 90s songs till now.
Rain in Blood, man, that is real,
So you proved you are a fan of, even though you are a super technical drummer, you can understand and enjoy even more simple stuff.
I love simple stuff. I love simple music. I learned to play music, and not just drums, but music in general, because of songs and bands that I liked, and messages that I liked, lyrics that I liked in bands, and because it had, it symbolized like rebellion for me, and it was a great outlet for teenage angst and anger, and also it was super inspiring intellectually, some of that music, and I got into music because of songs. It was because of songs and sounds. Hearing a great sounding drum set or a cool like guitar sound, that's what inspired me. Songs and sounds, and in all styles of music, but also especially in metal. I loved metal bands that had songs, and I still do, that you can actually sing along. They have to have a melodic component, and it's become so taboo to have any kind of melodic component in metal, which I think is really sad, because you then lose any potential for traditional songwriting, if you completely ignore the melodic components and some harmonic components too. So there's really no great chord changes in a lot of metal, and there's no melodies that you can sing along to,
Actually, the fact that everybody can record was not a good thing, because everybody put out a record and it's no ideas, and
there's no more filter. Because traditionally a lot of record labels had artist relations managers who were kind of the filter, and they knew something about music. Not always. There was terrible managers too, but most of the time there was a person who said, okay, come to my office, bring your guitar and play those songs for me. Not with the band and not in your studio or on the record. I want to hear you do this in my office.
Okay.
And then you can judge, can somebody actually play and sing and write a song or not? And then you can help develop this artist. But now everybody makes a record at home. Very true. And a lot of it is false. It's not actually even, it's programmed. And if it's recorded, it's sound replaced and beat detected, then filtered and quantized, and you have to, and then everybody releases their stuff because everybody can.
Yeah.
And then you have an ocean of shitty music that you have to swim through
To find
to find, you know, the good stuff. And nobody really wants to make that effort anymore. And then there's algorithms who, if you like this and you like this and this and this and this, it suggests similar things. But most of the time, they're not really all that similar, you know? And what the algorithm decides and sort of indoctrinates, you know, is not your true personal decision and taste. It doesn't reflect your true personal taste because the algorithm doesn't know. Maybe today you feel a little different than yesterday and you want to hear something slightly different emotionally, you know what I mean? And you get all these suggestions that are in the same direction and exactly the same kind of soundscape and genre and so on, rather than suggesting things that are more relevant to you in that particular moment, that particular day, in that particular mood, and so on. And I think that's also why a lot of the online radio stations and app radio stations are just playing the same old crap and stuff that's so similar always. You know what I mean? It's a shame, yeah. And definitely the aggressive element in sort of new metal and especially in like extreme metal is gone. I think there's like, you know, this too.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree.
Yeah.
So I'm impressed that I have the exact same opinion. So it means,
Yeah.
So it means that I'm not only feeling something that's wrong. It's for me that I grew up with that music. Now everything is, they should change the name for me.
Right. Yeah.
Now I'll ask you a question, drumming related. What does it take to play with Gianna Nannini? In your opinion, what are the skills required to play as you do?
Well, Gianna is a rocker at heart. She loves a good energy on stage, and she is very particular about time and groove, and sort of in her like older rock material, very much into metronomic precision and very sort of kind of brutal, almost mechanical, robotic precision in playing.
Okay.
Yeah, she totally digs that. She's very much into dynamics and she needs a lot of cues on stage. So it's a combination of those elements, and of course she needs to be able to rely on the band and the drummer, of course, in particular, and sometimes relies on good cues. So you need to know your stuff, your material, and always have eye contact with her in case something goes wrong or you need to give her a cue or something like that. She very, very much is focused on the drummer on stage for cues and just the feeling that you have her back. You know, in case she talks to the audience, she runs around and speaks to somebody in the audience and doesn't listen to how many more bars until the pre-chorus or whatever, that you're always like paying attention, giving her the right cues, when to go where, and so on. It's just, I would sum all this up under attention. You know, she needs that attention from musicians.
So straight playing, great timing,
Yes.
solid groove,
Yeah.
hitting hard, and pay a lot of attention to what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the most important thing.
When it comes, I mean, you love Italy. You've been in Italy many times, and you played with a lot of Italian artists.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, except Gianna, which is your favorite artist to work with?
Well, there's a lot of. I think there's wonderful Italian artists like. Over the years, I don't know exactly what's like hip right now, for example,
Okay.
now, but I think Georgia's amazing. She's an amazing singer, and I had the privilege to work with her. Or I really like Zucchero. I think he's hip, and Giovanotti, I think very hip. And I played with Fabri Fibra, for example, who came to guest with us with Gianna, for example, who's very cool, I think. Or I think very hip is actually Tullio De Piscopo. His old song "Stop Bayon." Do you know that?
Andamento Lento. You know which one?
I think it was called "Stop Bayon." The song it's like from the 80s, like
Okay.
very hip at the time. It still sounds hip. I listened to it the other day. Or Laura Pausini, of course. I think she's cool. Tiziano Ferro.
You work with all them, right?
Yes, either in the studio or live.
Wow.
And a lot of times also when we play with Gianna, she invites guests to sing with her. And I don't even remember all the artists
Wow.
I played with in those situations.
When it comes to practice, I mean, you know the real music world, the shows, and also the drum world that sometimes is different, right? So you can play multi-pedal orchestration solos and all that stuff, but you can also play songs in such a great way. How do you divide your practice time to develop both skills?
Well, you know what? I used to dedicate the practice time just to develop the skills first.
Okay.
And once I felt comfortable with the level of command and control, I worked specifically on the applications of those skills, how to work these things and ideas into song context. So it was kind of two different levels of practice and development. First, you need to learn the techniques, and then you have to just apply all this in a creative way. And that's how I go about it. I try to develop a high level of skill, and then I see, and the point of developing that is to apply it in a musical way. So sometimes I have to go through a long time of some weird, boring technical practice to feel comfortable enough to then say, now I can use this in a song format, or I can now apply these ideas creatively and create, simply intellectually create and compose something that then I have to learn and practice. So a lot of it is sort of intellectual work and sort of mental work, working on conceptual ideas. Like if you have some kind of multi-pedal orchestration, you have to figure out and plan, okay, which pattern sounds good and feels natural and is possible to play with other layers on top of it. And if it's impossible, how long does it take to develop? Because there's nothing that's unpracticable, So, and then I try things. Then once you've developed the skill and the techniques, you go take it to the experimental stage, and you create a little prototype, grooves and beats and layers of rhythms and stuff that I then record, and I say, that sounds good, that doesn't sound good, or that took a long time to develop, but it sounds crap, so I'm going to get rid of it.
Wow.
Which happens. And there's the process of elimination at that point where
And you keep only the good stuff.
and you keep the good stuff, or see, oh, here's a lot of potential, I could develop that further. And that's really my process. And then once I feel, okay, these ideas kind of work, then I try to implement them in sort of a musical context. Either I write songs around it, or I have songs where I think, oh, this could fit.
Okay. I have the last question.
Yeah.
But I know the answer, but I like to hear it anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, do you believe in talent? And what's your opinion about talent? Oh, what will you say? I know the answer, but
yeah,
every time you say, but I like to hear it. Every time
Okay.
I hear it, I feel
Well,
inspired.
yeah, as you know, I don't believe in talent. I think talent is a umbrella term that a lot of people use for many different characteristics and factors. I believe in passion, and I believe in determination. I believe in discipline. I believe in support from your family, friends, people around you. I believe in location. I believe in and the importance of location. I believe in the importance of infrastructure and access to infrastructure. All those things are important. And I think the main factor is passion for something and interest in something. If anybody is interested in, I don't know, brain surgery at the age of 5, you don't have to force them to read about brains and think about brains. It's they feel a passion for it and have an interest for it. So they read a lot about a lot, and they talk about it a lot, and they want to get more information because it turns them on to know about brains. And it's the same with drums or basketball or politics or anything else. In any area of expertise or business, if you have a passion for it, you don't have to force that person to practice it. They want to learn. They want to sit down and play the drums. They want to figure out things. It's the passion that is the most deciding factor, in my opinion. If you're passionate, then you want to do it as much as you can. And if you're interested in it. And if you do those two things, you're likely to get pretty good pretty quick. And if you then combine that with discipline on top of it and great education, which means you have to have the support from your mom to pay for your drum lessons, or your dad, to drive you to your drum lessons, whatever. If you have that on top of the passion and to have that support, and then you live in the right place, you're at the right location where you have access to great teachers and great schools and maybe clubs where you can play and all that kind of stuff. And if you not have the access, you go where there is that infrastructure. So you have the access, which means you have to be determined to make certain decisions. Determination is super important. Like if you want to be a marine biologist, you have to move where there's an ocean. If you want to be an astronaut, you got to go to space. Otherwise, you're not going to be an astronaut. And it's the same with drum. If you want to be a globally working drum, you have to go to places where there's a global scene and all that kind of stuff. So it takes determination to get to that level. And all these factors contribute to then a fully formed drummer or brain surgeon or basketball player who has is spent, however many years developing all these skills, taking the right steps, making the right decisions to get to where they are. And usually then when you hear somebody play like that, you go, wow, he's so talented.
But it's not. It's
not.
thousands of hours.
I have never met what people would normally describe as a talented person. I have met many incredible people and musicians and artists, and each and every one of them has worked their ass off, has had an incredible passion for something, has had the interest, the determination, the discipline, the support, and all those things. And maybe it's just a lazy way of calling the combination of all these factors.
So you just want to say, okay, I'm not talent. Instead of
but talent to me always sounds like this mysterious, like mystical, God-given, untangible, divine gift that sprinkled upon certain people and others not. And I don't believe that, honestly. I mean, I've had students where I'm thinking that takes them way too long. Other people are quicker in developing that particular thing. But 2 weeks later, they pick up on something 10 times faster than other people. And even there is no rule there. It really depends on the level of passion above anything, and the right support and all these factors. Anybody can learn anything, I believe, if you have those factors. If you don't have the passion for it, you're never going to be as good as somebody who does. Let's put it that way. I think, and if you don't have the support, if you don't have the determination, it's going to be difficult. I think those are if we want to really pick it apart, talent, I think those are the deciding factors.
So anyone, if they put enough effort, they can become Thomas Lang. Do you think that?
Hey, I do.
Of course, it takes a lot of work, but you will.
Yes, I agree. I mean, and I do. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And it, like I said, if you have the same passion for it as that I do, of course you can do it. I don't consider myself particularly talented, but I know that I love it and I enjoy it very much, and I like to spend time developing that skill. And I've had the support from my parents. I was in a good location where I had access to great teachers and so on. So yeah, I think if I can do it, you can do it. And if you can't, if one of those things is not happening, if you don't have the support, it's going to be difficult. Then maybe try and find the support elsewhere. Or if you're not at the right location, maybe move to the right location. Or if you don't have the discipline to do it on top of the passion, then maybe you're not cut out to do that, So I think it's a matter of making the right decisions and saying, well, I don't have that one factor, but I'll have all the others. How can I fix that one problem,
Okay. Thomas, grazie. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
your time. I think this is really inspiring for people listening and watching this video. You can be Thomas Lang if you put enough time and you sacrifice a lot of things, but thank you.
Never sacrifice anything.
Yeah, you were just really good at time management and everything. So
Yeah.
it's even more impressive. Grazie, Thomas. Thank you very much. Grazie a voi.